quality over quantity approach, it will always remain the most important, when it comes to content creation.
It's harder, but I think everywhere it's harder. Like, I think LinkedIn organic is harder. I think, I don't know, maybe YouTube or somewhere there's some alpha, but I think across the board, it's harder to get content in the hands of consumers.
Hire people who can do it better than you can. Don't keep all of it in-house. I don't do my own SEO. I understand SEO perfectly, but I am not an expert. I pay someone else to do my SEO.
Hey there, and welcome to another cakedotcom panel. My name is Gillian Griffin, and today we'll be talking about the future of content. Today, I have with me three very special guests. Firstly, we have Alex Birkett of Omniscient Digital. How are you doing today? And please tell us more about Omniscient Digital and what you do.
Yeah, Omniscient Digital is an organic growth agency. We build SEO and content marketing programs for typically B2B software companies. We've been in business for about four and a half years. We write content, we grow their channels, we do conversion optimization, and we tie it all back to attributable analytics.
Next, we have Olga, who is the founder of Quoleady, and she is a SaaS industry marketing strategist. How are you doing today? And please tell us a little bit more about what you do.
Yeah, honestly, we are very similar to what Alex just described. So I run a SaaS content marketing agency as well. We focus on SEO strategies. We write content. We build quality backlinks to ensure that our B2B SaaS clients, they get, not just visits to their websites, but actually signups and paying customers at the end of the day. So that's our focus.
And lastly, we have Gillian Jones, a freelance brand story strategist and copywriter for B2B and tech, and also an advocate for neurodivergence in the tech and SaaS industry. Gillian, how are you doing today? And let us know more about what you do.
I'm doing okay. I've been in this business now for 11 years, or I've been a freelancer for 11 years. Prior to that, I was in the public sector here in the UK, working in the NHS. And I went into content writing for a long time. Then I switched to direct response, and I trained in utilizing conversion copywriting techniques. And then I've kind of focused on brand story as my niche because while I could evangelize about that all day, I've worked a lot with one-on-one clients on their about pages, the brand story strategy. And I'm kind of now working more towards, I'm quite passionate about the kind of gadgets and the kind of software SaaS and tech are creating for neurodivergent people, because I think it's so important. And the way of getting people to buy and invest in these is to have a great story strategy. And I'm all about customer research and doing my conversion training. I learned more about voice of customer research. So I love data, but I'm more into customer data and speaking to customers. I think that's crucial, especially now.
Well, I'm glad that you brought that up, but I do have a question for you about that actually, but I think we're going to get that to a bit later. So just the first question that I wanted to ask y'all really just give us a brief summary of what you see the landscape for content creation is now. Like, what does it look like, say, for somebody who's looking to get into it? Well, let's start with you, Olga.
Yeah, definitely. Well, honestly, in 2023, when AI was all the hype, we got quite a few clients that just came up to me and say, you know what, Olga, ChatGPT is around the corner, and we're gonna go AI when it comes to content. We're gonna be creating content with AI, and we no longer need your services. Well, not everyone, of course, but some of them for sure. And I was like, well, that's your choice. Of course, we educate clients, on the necessity of the quality content, but if the client wants AI, you cannot stop the client. So long story short, 2024, and this major Google update in March, and all those clients are back. They're like, okay, I guess AI is no longer a solution. So let's continue where we left off. So basically, I think that describes very well the landscape these days in the content marketing space. 2023 was all about AI content and creating content at scale. Now that Google really tracks that content down and penalizes it, it's really about human content. It's about, expertise, experience-based content, well-researched content that brings, quality to the table. It brings value to the table. So that's what we're striving to provide, our clients as well these days. And I think that, quality over quantity approach, it will always remain the most important, when it comes to content creation.
Of course. Thank you so much for that. And Gillian, I can see you nodding your head over there. I'm sure you have quite a few things to say. Go ahead. Let us know. What do you think?
Okay, well, I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn marketing, as you would if you're in the B2B sector. And I saw a kind of pattern emerging where when it came to talking about content, and I think it was a lot of fear-based talk, you got some people in one camp that are quite almost Luddites in their approach towards AI. It's going to take all our jobs. There's going to be copied content. There's going to be less quality. It's going to be less trustworthy. We're not going to have a job. And a lot of truth in that. Then you had another camp of people who were saying, it's great. Let's use it. Let's try it. Let's see what it can do. And then you've got like this little group in the middle, which is using AI to generate content and just do it cheaply and quickly. I kind of sat in both camps, the two I've described earlier, for a long, long time, and I have been worried. But what we can see is that human-centered content is always going to be top. And I think now a lot of people are repositioning and pivoting what they do and marketing differently, because you're going to have to be able to think outside the box now. It's not enough to carry on using the same methods as we did in the past. We've got to think about the customer. We've got to be innovative in our content creation. I don't think it's all doom and gloom. AI can serve us, but we are still the ones in charge. We can utilize it. I mean, there's still a lot of fear about surrounding ChatGPT-5. I think we've just got to not put our heads in the sand, but not be constantly running around like a headless chicken either. A bit of bird analogy. But I think it's important to really focus on human-centered copy, as Olga's already demonstrated, and just think of lots of interesting, innovative ways of creating content that AI cannot emulate.
I see. Okay. And then, Alex, what about you? And before you answer, I actually saw an interview with you where you had quite a few AI tools at your disposal that you were using to, create articles, like, say, for example, like a listicle. So it's kind of like almost like a differing opinion, but maybe I'm wrong. So what do you think?
No. I mean, I did that. That is true. I did that for my personal website, alexbirkett.com. And the traffic went up and then it went down. So it looks like a mountain. So it was a horrible idea. Don't do that. Don't use the AI tools to just publish listicles. But that's why I have my personal website, for experimentation. No, both of the things y'all said resonate. So Olga, to your point, like, I feel like the sentiment of the market has been this like pendulum where it's like, I'm waiting for it to land in the middle. But yeah, last year it was like, are you using AI? Can you please use AI? I want to lower the cost of content production. And then this year they're like, are you using AI? Please don't use AI. If you're using AI, we don't want to work with you. And it's like, I don't know. I feel like everybody's asking the wrong question. The right question is like, is this content useful? Should this content be put out into the world? Is this good content? It's like the tool you use to create it. It's like asking like what kind of knives you use in the kitchen to cut the onions. It's like, does the meal taste good? Does the meal like hit the specs of the intended audience? So I don't know. Hopefully the dust settles in the middle. In terms of content overall, I think channel saturation is a real issue. There's, again, like these extreme opinions that you see on LinkedIn are not my reality. Like SEO still works. There's still a whole lot of search traffic being delivered to websites. It's harder, but I think everywhere is harder. Like I think LinkedIn organic is harder. I think, I don't know, maybe YouTube or somewhere there's some alpha, but I think across the board, it's harder to get content in the hands of consumers. So I don't know. It's kind of a rambling answer, but I I agree with both of y'all there. I'm just waiting for the day where people are like, hey, like what's the value of content in the first place? And like how do we like work towards that as like the end goal, not like looking at the tools as the solution in itself.
Okay, thank you. And I'm actually glad you brought that up, because I was thinking to myself, like, what, how would I, if I were starting out in content, like, I know that, like, I would be told something like, or I have been told, because I've done content writing before, I was told that you want to get out as much as possible. And one of the issues that I ran into was like, okay, if I'm going to be writing a lot, like, how do I ensure that the quality is still good? So the question is, how can I get lots of quality out there while still maintaining that level of really good quality for my content? Alex, please, if you could elaborate on that.
Yeah, that's the ultimate question. The shorter answer is money. You need money to do that. The more nuanced answer is like content operations. You want to focus on like basically defining what quality means. If you can make it as objective as possible, at least to like hit like a minimum barrier where you're like, all right, these are the things we need in place to distribute this, right? Like there's certain rules and heuristics that you need to distribute a piece of content on LinkedIn. LinkedIn incentivizes certain things in the content that ends up in the eyes of a lot of people. Same with SEO. And then the end user, like what does the end user want in terms of quality? And then within that, there's a whole lot of room to play and like be creative, but like there's certain rules that you need to adhere to. And we look at those as specs. And if you can hit those, then just tune up like the amount of velocity, because there is a certain math to it as well. In that, especially with SEO, you've got things like topical authority. So kind of, it's still like a theory, right? Like I don't know if this has been proven out or like Google said this, but like the more you're writing about a single topic, the deeper you go and like the more you cover like a single area. Like if you're writing about customer satisfaction and you have 2 articles versus like 200, the idea is that Google looks at you as an entity that is an expert in customer satisfaction. So there's some math to it too, even just like the amount of impressions you can get. Like if you're publishing like 5 times a week on LinkedIn, like your chances for each one of those posts going viral is going to increase. So like tweaking that volume knob, I think does help to an extent. Where I think like that is a mistake is when you diminish the quality, because then each individual piece has less of a chance of ranking in search. It has more of a chance of harming you in the long run. We've seen those case studies like the SEO heist, where it's like they published like 2,000 articles in the span of 2 months and then traffic tanks. So yeah, it's a complicated issue. I think content operations is where you want to look. How do we build a system that is functionally capable of hitting specs over and over again, much like you would think about like back to the restaurant analogy, like a McDonald's, like kind of you don't want to think about like an assembly line. I feel like I'm cheapening the idea of content, but you do want it to be predictable in a way, and then you can allow creativity within those boundaries.
Okay, that's great. So well, in that case, Gillian, I want to ask you the same question, because Alex mentioned you got to have money if you want to be able to do all that. So I guess if I'm a freelancer, like what would I do in order to stay afloat and to make sure that I'm getting lots of content out there that is still good quality?
I'm going to sound like I'm repeating myself here, but again, I think it's about making it about the customer more and writing about from your own perspective. And here, storytelling is important. I mean, it doesn't have to be woo-woo kind of story time, cuddly stories. You can have storytelling in SaaS, in tech. It's going to become increasingly important. And I think to reach people now, you're going to have to work harder, as I mentioned earlier. But I think, and this is coming from an introvert, it's about getting out there and talking to people, whether your content is through video, through social media, whether you use webinars like we're doing today. I'm really coming out of my comfort zone just doing this. But I think the way that you can get to your customers is through utilizing social media in a really unique way and finding out what do your customers worry about, what keeps them awake at night, what are they thinking about in this year, going forwards towards 2025, including that in your content. You're reaching out to people, so you're writing things that resonate. And I think what Alex said about 5 posts and posting more, I think that's very true. You are going to have to post more, but it all has to be quality. You're going to have to really step up in terms of what you write and how you present it.
Okay, I hear you. And that's interesting. As far as social media, and this is like, I guess, a question that I have, honestly, like, how important is social media to, say, like a content strategy or getting content out there? Olga, what do you think?
Yeah, I was about to say, actually, speaking of the content on LinkedIn, because you mentioned, LinkedIn content, that you need to churn out more and more content everywhere. My personal experience has been that you don't really need that much content on LinkedIn. Like if I do, let's say, 5 posts per day on LinkedIn, people are just gonna get tired of me, appearing at like every every possible place. So for me personally, it works. I would even say maybe at once 1 post per day, or maybe 1 post every 2 days works the best. That's so far the system that I'm applying for my personal branding and sort of like content distribution. But when it comes to kind of like LinkedIn helping with content distribution, definitely it could help, get you traction, especially if you, let's say, have interviewed some of the experts in the niche, and then you've tagged those experts, and this way the reach of your article is going to get, well, at least your LinkedIn post is going to get bigger, which is going to increase the chances of this article to be read. So this is definitely one thing to, to go about it. And yeah, basically, social media is always good, but it's, I would say it goes on the top of the, SEO strategy and, your content production workflow. Because I would say that not every SEO strategy, not every SEO article could be actually distributed, because let's say, and let's be honest, the bottom of the funnel content is the content that really converts and that gets our clients customers. So when we have this bottom of the funnel content written, sometimes it's very difficult to do a post about it on LinkedIn. Let's say it's been a post of whatever, like Google Analytics alternatives. And we are matching the keywords and the search intent behind those keywords. And we are writing this content for people who are searching for these alternatives. But it doesn't mean that if we post it on LinkedIn, like it's going to make any sense. Like people weren't even searching for that. So if this is the topic that really like resonates, that it's helpful, it's some sort of how-to content, maybe like top of the funnel, mid of the funnel content, then yes, definitely it makes sense to distribute it on LinkedIn and other social media, no problem. When it's bottom of the funnel, it's like typically the content that is a response to like a very specific niche query that not necessarily your audience on LinkedIn is going to have. So whenever it comes to those kind of keywords, like we don't really encourage our clients to publish this content on social media, but definitely when it comes to top of the funnel, mid of the funnel, we do encourage our clients to publish, and especially if they've interviewed someone that, to tag those people in a post and improve the reach. So I would say that's our approach.
Oh, thank you for that in-depth answer. And I'm glad you brought this up, because I was going to ask you just now, like as far as the SaaS industry and SaaS industry content creation, like what are some of the best practices that you use so that your clients can see actual growth?
Is that question still to me?
Yeah, actually, I gotta ask everybody. I think that everybody can get in on this, but I'll start with you since you were the one who started up topic.
Yeah. No, as I mentioned before, it's all about, the results, and all of our SaaS founders, the results for them is paying customers, obviously. So as long as they get paying customers from our efforts, it means that we're doing a good job. And to get those paying customers, we need to get them signups first, demo calls, signups, free trials, you name it. To get those, we need to be focusing on like very specific keywords that in our case are bottom of the funnel. Just like I mentioned, the listicles, the alternatives, the versus keywords, so like all of this bottom of the funnel. And of course, like if there's a SaaS company with big budgets, then we can definitely focus on every aspect and every stage of the content funnel. But whenever the startups comes over and they don't really have that budget, like they're bootstrapped and their budgets are limited, then we say, okay, let's and they still want to write the content, so we write content for them, but it is more about those bottom of the funnel keywords, I would say, the more like high intent keywords where people typing those keywords in Google are really searching for a tool like theirs. So the tool is the answer to their search intent, basically. So we cover those keywords to begin with. And then once all of those is covered and the topical authority is built within this space, then we expand on the top of this stage. So it's mid of the funnel, top of the funnel. And yeah, this approach has proven itself with dozens of the clients, and they're happy that they're getting leads and ultimately paying customers.
Yeah, that's what you got. That's the goal, paying customers. So Gillian, I'm going to ask you the same question, and I guess I'll ask it in the realm of brand content strategy. What are some of the best practices that you use to help your clients?
By asking them for any customer data that they have, any conversations that they've had. If they're a startup, it's harder, but you can go online and research similar, you can do competitor analysis, go online and have a look at similar companies. But it's about what are customers thinking? What do they want? What do they do? Getting that kind of valuable data down, and then creating content that's targeted at those concerns, aspirations, dreams, nightmares even, and addressing them through an intelligent content strategy and also repurposing content. They may have a lot of things there that can still be used, but in a different way. A blog can become a webinar discussion. A webinar can become an article, and so on, and just repurposing things and putting it out there, because I had it drummed into me and I didn't quite get it right at the very beginning of my career, which is not everyone will see your content first time. So you're not shoving the same thing into their faces. There's always going to be somebody that hasn't seen it. And if you can recreate it in a very intelligent and innovative way, then there are people you're going to reach that you didn't reach before. So if you want to grow, again, it comes back to that think outside of the box, innovative content creation and repurposing what you've already created, so you're not redoing it over and over again.
All right. Thank you for that insight. And then Alex, same question.
This is going to sound like a cop-out, but I think just the idea of having a plan at all. So like some intentionality around the content you're creating, and ideally you have a growth model where you can sort of like slot each piece into a decision framework where you're like, you're not just saying like, it would be fun to write this, or we're writing this because it has a lot of search volume. You can have like a justification to say, we're writing this because it relates to pain point A, and our conversion strategy in terms of business value and generating business results is we want to get them on an email list, right? For an agency, for us, for example, not a lot of people are just going to search something like, I don't know, best content agency. Some people will. Some people will search best content agencies and just like reach out to 5 of them and compare them. But for the most part, what we're doing is we want to get people on our email list or on our podcast, because over the course of 20, 10, 30 touch points, suddenly they're in market and they're like, I've been reading this agency's newsletter and I trust them, right? Like that's kind of the strategy here. In some cases, like the PLG model, you can model it out where you're like, we have a freemium version of the product. So we can expand across all of our bottom funnel sort of category keywords, our alternatives keywords, pain points of people seeking to solve the problem without using the actual software category. And then you can just convert them from there. But I think having some sort of an action plan that says, this is the way our company grows, and this is the reason this piece is being written. Just having that intentionality in the first place is key to me, because it looks different for all kinds of different companies, even to the extent that we've done things where it's like, they don't have a freemium model, but we want to do bottom funnel content. They're not going to convert many of those people. They have a nice paid ads team, so we can set up like remarketing pools. We can basically, rank content that would be somebody searching for their product or their pain point, and then we can use that for remarketing audiences, and then target people again on LinkedIn with like company parameters for their ICP. But like there's always a plan in place for like, how is this feasibly going to generate the business results we want?
Okay, thank you so much for that. And then I guess, of course, we have to ask like what to do and what are the best practices. So can you all think of any pitfalls that, somebody who's starting out or in this industry might not see coming? Olga, let's start with you.
Well, I'm not sure really about someone who's starting out, but recently I have interviewed the head of marketing, head of content actually at PandaDog. And they were saying that I was actually asking about their failure, like what was your failure that you can talk about? And Hannah mentioned that they've been really placing bets on the EEAT content, right? So, this, trustworthy, expertise, experience, authoritative content. Really, after some experimenting, it didn't really make, that much of a difference. So it does play a big role these days, especially like now. But she mentioned that it wasn't like the biggest factor, the biggest ranking factor for sure when, they were experimenting with this. So now they are considering it, but not that as much as before. So this is one thing. Speaking about, pitfalls, well, I would say that a lot of founders that's starting out, they're just thinking, oh, I have so many great ideas, I'll just write about them. Unless you are someone like very well known in the industry, unfortunately, if you start writing content, no matter how great it is, if it's not connected to SEO in any way, and they don't know how to connect this content to SEO, nobody's going to see it. So if you don't have that following on your LinkedIn, on your like socials, it's just going to be there, maybe like page 75 of Google. Nobody's going to care about this content. So I would still follow and like try to kind of like marry the SEO angle and also the content creation angle, because this is very important to keep the content valuable, but also SEO optimized, because just like Alex said, SEO is not going anywhere. Like it's here with us to stay, and Google considers all of those signals that are important, that are ranking factors, and we need to be doing that keyword research, whether we like it or not, and we need to make sure that this content actually answers this specific keyword, because a lot of content that's just generic, or like, oh, I had this great idea that I'm going to cover, usually it doesn't perform well. And of course there should be definitely a system and a strategy of your writing. So if you start writing about something, you should definitely go in depth and build that topical authority if you want your content to rank. So not just, oh, I'll write this article and that article in a different space. So it's kind of like throwing spaghetti at the wall, right? So you don't really want to do that. So pick a niche, do the keyword research, and I'm talking a lot like about SEO perspective. And of course, you need to do all of this kind of research. You need to understand your product perfectly well. You need to understand the market. You need to understand the competitors, the features everyone else is offering, and then write amazing content that answers the search intent behind a specific keyword. So
there's essentially just have intention behind what you're writing and what you're doing with the content that you have.
Yes,
I'm not to understand that correctly.
Yeah, exactly. So have a system, make a plan. Like we usually make a content plan for several months ahead, right? So it's like 3-6 months content plan that we have, and we know which pillar cluster topics we are going to cover. And then we go, sort of like pillar by pillar, and then we cover the first one, and then, the the neighbor pillar and then the other pillar. But a lot of people, they don't know how to plan your content, and they might, just cover one topic from one pillar and then another one from another one, and it just doesn't make sense. Like, it doesn't work together. So you gotta have a system, you gotta have an order. Gotta have a very like concrete plan of action, like what you're going to be writing, why you're writing that, of course. Add call to action, optimize it for SEO so you get found, and like all stuff like that. And yeah, ultimately, you're gonna get the results by doing everything properly.
Oh, thank you very much. So if you do it right the first time, you're gonna got to do it again. So that's what I pretty much understood from that. Yeah.
Most likely you're gonna do it again. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and as far as like what you brought up as far as intention and making sure you have all of your information right, Gillian, being somebody who's very data driven and just very focused on data, like what pitfalls have you seen or have you noticed as far as like, anybody, like as far as content creation and stuff, as long as you've been doing it?
That sometimes content can be extremely jargon orientated. Jargon is fine if you know your audience well enough to know that they'll understand the jargon. That's fine. But a lot of the time, I think it's like maths teacher, isn't it? When they're giving you the equations and everything, they forget that some people might not just pick that up. And I think with tech people,
Right.
sometimes they tend to go into the language and focus on data and focus on churn and bounce. A lot of people will understand that, but I think they need to aim towards being more human focused and think that there is a human being on the other end of that reading it. They don't care how many industry awards you've won. They don't care how wonderful you are and how you all did this, that, and the other, and the results you got. It is important up to a point. But they also want to know, do you understand their needs? Do you understand what keeps them awake at night? Do they know what your pain point is? And do they have a solution in clear language that speaks to them? And also, I'm bound to say this because I'm a freelancer and I do still do copywriting as well as strategy, but is that if you're a founder of a business and you go with this intentionality and come up with the content strategy, as Alex refers to, hire people who can do it better than you can. Don't keep all of it in-house. I don't do my own SEO. I understand SEO perfectly, but I am not an expert. I pay someone else to do my SEO. I mean, there are probably other things like web design. If I wanted to have my website redesigned now, I would hire an expert. Wait until you have the budget. Don't hire a content strategist. There are so many talented people out there. I know it's hard right now because people have limited budgets, and they all, well, Tom over there can do this and this, and Jim over there can do this and that, but really perhaps they can't. Not everybody can do absolutely every single thing. There are experts and niche experts out there. Utilize them so that when you do get your intentional strategy together, it's absolutely A grade level perfection, and it's going to hit all the points. And you need to have expertise. If you don't have it in-house, hire someone who has that expertise.
I love that answer. I really do love that answer because it makes sense and it goes right back to what Alex was saying. You're going to need some money if you want to be able to do this.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, definitely. But Alex, I'd love to get your insight on this.
Yeah, pitfalls. I'm going to try to articulate this. I've got a lot of swirling thoughts, so let's see if this comes out in any coherent way. But I think a lot of people could benefit from just like first principles or like their own reasoning. Like I think a lot of people outsource their thinking with regards to content. So like in one vein that I see a lot of the times, people like overcomplicate things and they're like, oh, we need like semantic SEO and like double eat and Google's algorithm update changed today. And like, here's what their patent said and like this and that. And you're just like taking in so much information. But if you just stopped for a second and you thought, okay, what are we trying to do here? What does Google want? Google wants to deliver content to an end user and hit high satisfaction. And they're curating content by some mechanism, probably some trustworthiness of the website and some relevance of the content. So how can we match that pattern and reach our end user? You just think like first principles. And to Gillian's point, like it's like with each piece of content, you think, who is the human who's going to read this, and how do I build a piece of content that's going to like make them happy, like to solve their problem. We tend to like build up all this scaffolding and this terminology, and there's so much noise on X and on LinkedIn and whatever. But it's like, just go down to the roots and ask like the silliest question possible. And if you can answer that, I think you're going to be in a better place than the people who are overcomplicating things. And then on the other side, there's a silly question that I always ask, which is like, how are you feasibly going to win, right, with this approach? And in many cases, like, people haven't thought longer than a few seconds on this. So like with the AI content thing, we had a lot of people who last year were like, all right, we're just going to like outsource it, AI. We're going to like build outlines, basically have AI and maybe polish it up a little bit because it's easy and it's cheap. But then, you ask the second order question, which is like, all right, if it's easy and cheap for us to do it, then what's stopping other people from doing it? And if other people have more money or a better domain rating or a bigger brand, like, how are we going to win? We're not going to, because it's easy to fake. It's easy to replicate. So like, we have no moat here. Or we've had prospects come to us and, they're like, hey, we're an early stage startup and we want to compete with HubSpot and Intercom in SEO. And our budget allows us to produce 2 articles per month. And I'm like, okay, cool. So the answer is, you start 15 years ago, you increase your budget 2x, and then you can beat them, right? Like, there's no way. Like, you just got to think for like 10 seconds and be like, all right, how does this work? Like, what is my logic on this? And I don't know, I think like just going back to your own kind of like first principles and your own reasoning and thinking through, how do we win in this channel? How does the customer get value from what we're producing? And if you can answer those, that's a great place to start.
Okay, thank you so much for that answer. And I guess going back to what you said about AI, I guess me personally, like, if I were, in this field and I were to I'm trying to build myself and trying to build my brand and all that stuff, AI would be enticing. I'm not going to lie. It would be very enticing. But as you all spoke about earlier, human-made content is always going to be on top. So my question to all of you really is, do you see AI as, starting to, advance more to where people can use it and it still pumps out good quality, or do we have a while still? Olga, you nodding your head. I see you want to answer this.
Great. I was saying that I think AI is great and we can all use it, but not for content creation, like not for actually going ahead and writing an article from scratch. Like, writing an article from scratch is not the answer. However, like, we use it even today, but for tasks like, with the research, it helps with the like research and finding the right sources for the article. It helps you, let's say, rewrite something. Like, I'm not a native speaker, and sometimes I don't know like what's the best word here or there, and like I would go to ChatGPT and say, hey, like, give me some synonyms here. Like, what is the best word here? Can you rephrase that? Like, can you make it more conversational? Can you make it sound native? Can you like do this, do that? And when you know what to say and you have the expertise and experience needed, then you can ask ChatGPT to rephrase it, to say it maybe even in better words that you could have. But if you have nothing to say and you want AI to say this for you, you want to just, do this from scratch, this is not going to work. So it's about, I think I even had this LinkedIn post about it. Like, if you don't have this idea, there's no way, ChatGPT is gonna do this for you. If you have an idea, you will be able to use it to write this post for you, whether it's a post or like blog post or LinkedIn post, doesn't matter.
Okay, so it's better used as a tool. It's better used as a tool, from what I understand.
Just like Alex said, it's a knife. I love your food analogies, by the way. So yeah, it's a knife, right? So, I mean, if you have nothing to cut with a knife, like, okay, like, there's nothing you can do with it.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad I asked this question. And I'm gonna ask Alex the same question. Where do you see AI going in like the next 5 years? I'm really interested because like from what I understand, like from your blog post and especially what I've seen, like you've written a lot and spoke a lot about AI. So I'm interested in getting your insight on that.
Then I have no idea what it's going to do in the next 5 years. I'm not even going to pretend to know what it's going to do in the next year. I have zero clairvoyant ability, and AI is notoriously very fast moving. I couldn't have predicted where we are today 2 years ago. Where we're
Yeah.
currently at though is like I find myself trying to write a LinkedIn post, let's say, and if I use AI to write the post, I'll end up spending probably 2 or 3 times the amount of time trying to prompt it to get the right output. And then I'll spend an extra 2 times what it would normally take me to edit it. So then I realize, well, why don't I just write the thing? So it's actually a horrible use case for it. On the flip side, I love the invisible use cases of AI at this point. So like we run a podcast, and we use Riverside, and they basically pull the transcript. They identify the timestamps. We can automatically cut clips using AI. It basically takes all of the manual work away. We polish it a little bit at the end, but it probably saves us several hours per episode. So, and similarly, like there's a lot of use cases being built in products nowadays, like keyword research. AI can actually quickly cluster keywords under parent topics, using basically natural language processing to say, all right, you're going after this term data contracts, data contract examples, data contract template, how to create a data contract. All of these are clustered within this, whereas that used to take a lot of manual effort. And you still have to spot check it, of course. I do think that like you could, if you were IBM, I actually think you could probably just like use ChatGPT to create a bunch of glossary pages. No new information, but like what is data governance? What is whatever, like the cloud, like really high level things. And I'm pretty sure they could rank for them. But they're in such an advantageous position because of their brand and their domain rating that like they can probably rank for it, but very few others can. And then the risk incurred is pretty high too. Like, are you going to take, the shot that like, if Google penalizes your website, like, are you going to take that shot as IBM? Like, it just feels like the risk reward trade-off is very high for them, in terms of like the risk. But I do think it could work, probably nowadays. I mean, Google definitely lifts huge websites over smaller incumbents. So like you have a lot of unfair advantage. So if you did want to just like create a bunch of generic billboard content, it probably would work. I wouldn't do it.
Also,
but...
of course not.
Like I told you, my personal website is a great example of this, right? Mount
Yeah,
Everest.
it's true. That is true.
Yeah, like, do you want that to happen? Probably not.
All right. Well, and that is Gillian. I actually read your blog about AI. I think that was this time last year. You were talking about AI, and if you could just like expand a little bit more about what you were talking about, because from what I got, it's not that AI is bad, but at the same time, in the face of copywriting and like real writers, it might pose a problem. How do you feel about it now?
I think I have learned to accept that artificial intelligence isn't going anywhere. And I think we're going to have to come to terms with it and accept it. But rather than being that kind of approach towards it and being, oh, stay away from that, I think we're just going to have to work alongside it. I mean, like I said earlier, there's a lot of fear around ChatGPT-5 coming up, and now you've got Perplexity and Pi and Bard and goodness knows what else. But it will never replace the quintessential uniqueness of human spontaneity. It cannot do that. But maybe decades from now it'll be able to, or even a few years. It's definitely going to improve. It's going to get better, and there's no getting away from that. But right now it's not trustworthy. It can hallucinate. It can come up with nonsense. Anything that you take from it in terms of research has to be fact-checked, because it'll tell you that, we only go up to 2021 or 2022. So you've got to make sure that any information it gives you, I have to check every single reference that it gives me if I use it for my own research. But having said that, it's good for, and I think Olga touched on this earlier on, researching headlines. You have to prompt it the right way. You have to learn how to prompt it, and there is training out there. Obviously, I'd be very careful which ones you choose. But you You learn how to create headlines. You can ask it to reshuffle something and say it better. It's useful. But again, you must make it serve you, not the other way around. It's no good, as Olga said, for writing articles because you could spend so much time fact checking and rewriting. It's going to take all day. And also, I'm very conscious of the fact that a lot of people, and I would say Americans, are probably much better at trying things and being enthusiastic and positive than the Brits are. You only have to look at LinkedIn to see that they're willing to get in there and try it and see what it can do and what it can't do. We need to be like that more, I think. Running away from it is not going to help. But I don't think it's ever going to replace human writing, the spontaneity, because I'm neurodivergent and I don't think any artificial intelligent app out there is going to be able to replace my brain power. I'm telling you, I'm unique, as every single one of us are.
All right. Well, actually, I'm glad you brought up that because because this actually brings me to the specific question that I had for you. Like, so really, like, what are some ways that you would challenge companies to, like, in the SaaS industry or businesses to be more inclusive and to the neurodivergent community, like, as far as services that they can provide?
Thinking about brand story, because I'm creating my own strategy at the moment to pitch clients, and I'm looking online for businesses that are creating neurodivergent software and gadgets for the neurodivergent community. And I found an amazing one, and they had created this marvelous brand story. They'd created an app to help children on the autism spectrum to identify colors. And the founder of this business had told the story, and it resonated, and it made me think that this is marvelous. Why can't they all be like this? Because he'd created this great thing through his own experience, and his story was that it was his own brother who was on the spectrum. So he created it for him, and then he created this agency, he's the SaaS founder, and got investment and created this app so all children can use it. And I thought, wow, I would love to work with someone like that. So I would say, if, like any company, whether it's SaaS, tech, or whatever, you're thinking of creating something for people in the neurodivergent community, I would go into that community and say, what could we make? What do you think would make your life easier or better, or make it easier to navigate your way through society, through working? If we could create something that helped you to work better, or even just go through life better. It's again to what I said earlier about talk to people who have the lived experience of neurodivergence, somebody autistic, somebody on who has ADHD. What would help you? What if we told you we've created this? Conduct surveys, ask questions. Being inclusive is about asking, creating something that helps them.
Yes. I completely and totally agree with that. I think that is extremely important. I mean, sure, we all have somebody who's neurodivergent in our lives if we aren't ourselves. I can think of my cousin, and I'm more than positive that, and from the articles that I read, that there are services and there are programs and there are apps that will really, really help her to move on in life. And I think that that's a really beautiful sentiment. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, I have one last question for each of you. It's kind of similar to the last one. So do you have any predictions in the next, say 5 years of what content creation will look like? Alex, let's start with you, my man.
The worst to start with on this one. I'm terrible at predictions. I couch this in so much epistemological humility that I don't know. I guess we can use the past as an indicator. I'm very into what has existed, what will exist. I think Morgan Housel wrote a book on that recently called Same as Ever, right? That's Warren Buffett's thing. He's what existed 50 years ago? What's probably going to exist in 50 years? So I'm very not into speculating on things that I don't have data points for. Time is a flat circle. Nowadays, everybody's talking about owned audiences and email newsletters and subscribers. It's there's probably going to be some, how do you build an audience that accumulates over time? And what are the distribution channels that you're going to use to reach them? those may change. There's probably always going to be some mechanism of a search engine. I don't know if that's going to be Perplexity, if Google's going to maintain like their king status there. It's like there's always going to be content that needs to be created, and there's always going to be a need for a retrieval and curation mechanism to match the people searching for that content. There's probably going to be social platforms that are more discovery based, right? Maybe who knows what's going to happen with TikTok? Maybe some other platform will rise. But until AI replaces all of our abilities to think, like there's going to be a need to create valuable content, to distribute it to an audience, and hopefully to like, capture, some of those people's like affinity, if not like email address, or if there's a new platform that's not email address based. I don't know. Like I think those things are going to maintain. What's going to change? I have no idea. No clue. I mean, probably more like a experience-based touch. There's things that we're indexing on with our SEO distributed content, like much more like subject matter expert, experience-based, weaving like brand narratives and brand POV through the pieces. I still think, I don't know, maybe Olga, you said like PandaDoc did all this double eat stuff and it didn't do anything. Sometimes I think, what Google says and what Google does are two different things. So it's like they're saying like, oh yeah, like spruce it up with like your own experience and this and that, and then like they'll rank just the most generic garbage from Forbes. So
Exactly.
I don't know. The answer is I don't know.
Okay, I guess we'll pass it to Olga. What do you think?
Yeah, well, if I were to play this guessing game, I guess called prediction, I would say that, well, first off, since Google is launching this, SGE right now, and probably most likely all of the top of the funnel content is going to be displayed anyway. Like all of this sort of like glossary answers, like what is project management, like what is this or that. These are going to be covered probably by Google itself. So most likely it doesn't make sense to focus on those keywords anymore because, you're not going to be ranking for those keywords. So the focus is most likely to shift to, bottom of the funnel, mid of the funnel, to the content that's actually human created, right? So where you can demonstrate your experience, expertise, and like all of that. When it comes to email, I don't really believe that emails are going anywhere, but I mean, of course, we will see what happens. When it comes to SEO and also link building, because we have been actually discussing this topic with Brian Dean. I have interviewed Brian Dean. He's actually in Portugal as well. So it turned out like he's in Lisbon. So he's like my neighbor almost. So you're saying that, Google has been trying to ditch backlinks for so many years. Like it's been trying to shift from backlinks to some other ranking factors, but it can't. Like it can't do that. So it most likely that backlinks are here to stay. That there is still going to be important, and there's still going to be a ranking factor, which is a good news for us because it's our big service, right? Like building links, and we'll see how that goes. Then, when it comes to content in social media, but generally content is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. Definitely, I see the shift to more of a, maybe like journalism is the answer. So it's sort of like, the quantity of the content that is like journalist level. Not just, let's just, push out content that we create like in a couple of hours and call it a day. But no, it's going to be, well-crafted, well-written, well-researched. Maybe, I don't know, maybe we'll even have to kind of like, travel and interview people, here and there to create. So we are going to become journalists, maybe. That's the shift that I see that, we're going to make because content has to become like more and more like high quality, I would say, with time. So probably this is where it's going. But then again, we'll see how things turn out because none of us are fortune tellers, unfortunately.
Of course not.
Yeah, and so let's meet in 5 years and see if those predictions were true.
I will definitely be calling all of you in 5 years. Remember this date. What is it? May 14th. I'm gonna give each one of you a call just to
Got
ask
a
you how's it going.
reminder.
But
Okay,
of course, Gillian, what do you think? How about you?
I think that the freelance landscape is going to change a lot over the next couple of years, and AI is going to improve. But I think, going back to what Olga said about journalists, I think your writing is going to you're going to up your game. And I think maybe there's going to be a move away from order takers, that is, people who just say 6 blogs, right, here we are then. And maybe a move towards subject specialists again. Like, I noticed that from the pandemic onwards, it was more article writing, blog writing, and a lot less people asking for branding expertise, because people were they just wanted to get what they needed done, and that was it. And it seemed to lessen in importance. But I think now we're going to move more towards personal branding, storytelling, journalistic kind of writing. All of those things are going to increase in importance, and there's going to be less, maybe, I don't know, I'm on the fence about whether generalists or niche writers are going to kind of, which one is going to come out on top. But I definitely think that people who are experts in branding, in strategy, in what was I talking about? Yeah, branding, strategy, content strategy, and better, more informed writing. So that uniqueness that cannot be replaced by AI, might be using it to serve us and help us occasionally for a little bit of, tweaking. But I don't think that content is going away. I'm repeating what Olga said earlier, but I think it's here to stay. But just the people that are producing it are going to be more strategic, more expertise, rather than just freelance content writers.
All right. Actually, one last question for you, Gillian, because I just thought about this now. Like, what in this changing landscape of content creation, what can freelancers do to stay afloat? Because I've tried it myself, and it's very hard, very, very, very hard.
That is the $6 million question, and I'm not sure I can answer it, because I'm speaking to people on LinkedIn, especially like photographers, illustrators, graphic designers, people who work in film, talented people who are working freelance, and they are struggling to navigate their way through this. It is so hard. I think that basically is to reposition, to do courses if you can, learn different things, whether it's a language or another skill to add, become an expert in what you do, whether that's in strategy or brand or in your writing even. I mean, I do a separate bit of writing now, and I'm hoping that maybe if things don't improve, you need to be able to be flexible and have different sources of income, and where you can move sideways or that way. A lot of people right now, it feels like they're stuck in the middle and there's nowhere to go, and it's hard. But I think we will come through this. We'll just have to change and pivot if we have to, that word that's been probably used a lot in the last 5 years. But we can do this because we are quintessentially unique human beings, and we always see our way through. So we have to look at the positives. We'll get there.
Thank you. I personally needed that. I don't know about the rest of everyone. Thank you so much. Well, all right, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Olga, Gillian, Alex, you all were really, really great. Thank you so much for this. It was a great conversation, lots of insight. Of course, people, if you would like to see more of us, you can visit our website at cakedotcom, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.